right? I mean, the very fact, one of the things that both during the campaign and after that I always thought was a bit weird was when people would say, but are we going to be like Canada or like Norway or like Guernsey or like Macedonia? Well, the fact that they all have different deals, the fact that no two European countries outside the EU have identical accords with Brussels is telling you that each one is sui generis. So obviously Britain is also going to have its own particular arrangements. But it was quite striking when the Prime Minister spoke in Florence that she said, we're going to be not so near as Norway, but closer than Canada. Actually, I don't think she said it alliteratively like that, but you got the message, right? Something in between. We're not going to be members of the European Economic Area like Norway, but we're not going to have just a trade agreement like Canada. Well, in between Norway and Canada, frankly, is Switzerland. By the way, I can't help noticing that they're doing okay, the Swiss. You know, plainly, some kind of miserable, wretched existence is possible outside the EU with a series of bilateral treaties covering your trade and regulatory standards. The Swiss are outside the common agricultural policy, outside the common fisheries policy, outside the common foreign policy, outside the common rules on criminal justice and migration, and critically, outside the customs union. The Swiss have a free trade agreement with China. The EU is not even talking about one. The Swiss have had for ages a free trade agreement with Canada, which the EU has not yet implemented. The Swiss, through EFTA membership, have free trade agreements with most of the big economies in Asia, including Indonesia, Japan, and so on, and indeed in South America. They have many, many more free trade agreements than the EU has, and yet they have sufficient regulatory equivalence that they have effectively membership of, do you call it membership of the single market? You know, it's a semantic question. They are outside the jurisdiction of the European Court, outside the jurisdiction of the European Commission, so in that sense they are not technically in the single market. However, they have replicated through bilateral treaties, through domestic legislation, quite a lot of the contents of the single market for reasons of economy of scale. They don't always have to do it, and in some areas they choose to stand aside, but they've chosen to in most areas, and it's working extremely well. You know, they have very low unemployment, they have incredibly high growth. People sometimes say, oh, well, they've got a really overvalued currency, it's really threatening. Do you know what? I'd swap my problems for theirs. I mean, the worst problem you have is that the whole world is piling in and investing in your country because you're so strong and your currency. I could take that as my worst problem. Although I know